friends, it's Heather with Running with Scissors, and you saw in the opening what we are making for your May 2025 sub box. That's sub box number 55. All right, so let's see what's in the box here. So you'll have 2 larger containers of paint. These are really small. They're super cute. They're about 5 or 6 inches. They don't take a whole lot of paint. So for the colors you need the most of, we put in these containers. And then you'll have paint pods for the other colors that we will be using. And it's plenty of paint. So, all right, you'll have your wood pieces. They'll be shrink wrapped, probably individually. Mine are all in one big bunch. And then you'll have a couple of fine brushes in your kit, some wedges, and of course you'll have glue and instructions. I don't have glue and instructions in my box. You are going to want baby wipes handy. So baby wipes, I have a couple of paint water here, rinse water for my paint brushes. Some paper towel. You're going to need a pair of scissors because you're going to want to cut these wedges into small pieces because a lot of this is really fine work and you don't need these big wedges. I'm going to try and slide my camera just a little closer to me because I'm reaching way across the table here. Hopefully that will stay. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open my ducks and sort my pieces. Now, you'll have a picture, so use your picture to sort your pieces. These are multiple layers. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to just make sure that I have all my pieces where they need to go. And that might take a minute, so just be patient and go through them. Melissa does try very hard to make sure she gets them all put on where they need to be, but you can see this little guy doesn't go there. Okay, that one looks good. We're going to tear them apart in a minute anyway. And then this is the base. Okay. And then this guy here, he's got his water that goes behind him, his little hair, his shorts. I think these are reversed. 1, 2, 3. You'll notice on this one there's no score outline on this, and that is because it does not get a water droplet overlay. That's why there's only 3 little water droplets with this duck. Okay, he's all set. And then this guy here. Just make sure we know what we got going on. This goes there and there, 2 pieces of grass. I think that goes like that. Like that. Okay, all right. Okay, so now that we put them together, now we're gonna tear them apart. You know, another thing that you might want to grab is some painter's tape if you have it. I'm going to grab that real quick. It's a lot of small pieces with this kit, and it's going to be easier to separate your pieces by color and then put them on some painter's tape to help you paint them. So I just tear off a piece of tape and I roll the ends and I stick it to my table. All right, so I've got my 3 pieces. Now, you're not going to be able to see everything in the camera here that I'm doing because I'm going to move it up out, but you'll see what I'm working on right here. So I'm going to set their bases aside for now, and I'm going to work on the ducks themselves, all the pieces for the ducks. I want to separate stuff by color. Now the easiest way to do this is to put your ducks in order. There's going to be one on the left, one on the right, one in the center. And then take your pieces to that and keep them on the tape left, right, center so you know where they go to. So right now I'm just going to work on orange and probably, I don't know, maybe the grass. Okay, so we're going to do orange on the top. We'll put grass down here. So this is my duck that's on the right. Beaks are orange. And then we got grass to the center, no grass on the left. All right, and then we've got one more piece of tape down here. So let's do yellow, even though it won't be all the yellow. Let's do the tufts on their heads are going to be yellow. The pieces of his, these are actually like his arms inside the floaty. This one's got a big wing, so the center one's got a wing and the tuft. We don't need to tape down the duck themselves because those are pretty big and we'll just be able to hold on to them. Again, this little raindrop, teardrop look piece, that is his arms. So those are going to be yellow. Okay, and then, yep, you can see I'm going to do one more row for blue. Okay, so on this side, for my left-hand duck, I've got the 3 water droplets. And in the center duck, I've got the 4 water droplets. Now, and then on this far right one, I've got 4 water droplets. Okay, so that's probably pretty good for right now. A lot of the other pieces we can hold on to. Some of them we can't, or they're going to be better taped, but we'll put those on this green one as soon as we get the green done. So let's just focus on that for a minute. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slice up some wedges here. I'm just using leftover wedges in the studio here, but you just need really small pieces. There's no sense in having big ones unless you want to use a paintbrush for this. I really like to use wedges when I paint. All right, now if you have a paper plate or use your box, you can scoop the paint out with your paintbrush if you want to, or a popsicle stick or a toothpick. I'm just gonna go straight into the pod, and then I'll use my paper towel quite a bit to pounce off. So I actually told you that the puddles or the bases were blue, but on this particular one, on the far right duck, that's the duck that's sitting in the inflatable pool with the rubber ducky. The base is actually green on him because the pool is sitting on grass. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint this base with a coat of green. And you'll need a couple of coats. Just get a thin coat on there first and let it dry. We'll go back in just a minute to get another coat on. All right, so there's that base there, but that's just one coat. We're gonna come over here and we're gonna pounce onto these guys here. And then we'll just set our sponge to the side here. We're gonna move on to our blue here. So I'm gonna paint this with the Summer Sky. Okay, that's the Summer Sky pod. Same thing, you can either dump it onto your table or your pizza box, or you can just work straight from the pod itself. These are our water droplets and our other two bases. Actually, the other rubber duck is sitting in an inflatable pool too. And I was going to paint his base blue, but he's actually sitting on the grass. So I'm thinking I'm gonna go back and do one more base green. Okay, so while I'm thinking about it, we're gonna grab the base to the middle duck. That's the other duck sitting in the rubber pool. And we're gonna paint that green as well. Sorry about that. I was thinking they are all puddles of water, but not all of them are puddles of water. All right, so there's our second base. Okay, remember just to keep your pieces together so you know what goes with what. Now the bases are interchangeable and all that, but okay. Let's move on to our yellow and our orange. Now, if you remember from other boxes, painting a foundation of white under anything yellow or orange will go a long way to making that cover better. So let's go ahead and do a foundation of white on all of our yellow and orange stuff. Just really thin. You don't need to double coat it or anything like that. It just needs a nice thin coat. And now this also includes the ducks themselves. So let's go ahead and set any pieces that haven't been assigned to a paint yet aside and grab the duck themselves. First, we're going to start with the far right one. That's the duck sitting in the pool with the little rubber ducky. And we're just going to go ahead and give him a little coat of white first, just a little nice thin foundation. And then we're going to put him back up where he goes. While we're doing it, we're going to grab the little rubber duck because the rubber duck's going to end up being yellow as well. So let's just give him a little foundation of white as well to get him started. All right, we're going to grab the middle duck, which is this duck here, the duck with the, oh, what are those things called? Like a snorkel tube? All right, and then we're gonna grab our last duck, the duck on the far left. This is our little swim trunk in inner tube duck. And we're gonna paint him with the foundation of white as well. Okay, that is it for things that need a foundation of white, and then we're done with white for a minute, so we're just going to set that aside. We are going to use white a little more because we're going to mix some colors and stuff, but let's grab our far left puddle and go back to our blue because I forgot this, and paint the puddle of water blue. This is your stand. And while we got our blue out, we're going to go back and we're going to give all of that another coat. So we're going to come back over to our water droplets and give them another coat. Well, it looks good with just 2 coats. Okay, so I'm going to just set that aside for now. I'm going to give my grass another coat. My grass is probably going to need 3 coats, maybe 4. So I'm going to come in and get this done real quick. Looks like green is covering kind of hard. It sometimes does. Okay, and then don't forget your bases. Green is definitely going to need a 3rd coat. Let's just let that sit for a minute and dry. And then let's move back over to our yellow. So we're going to paint everything that needs to be yellow right now. Now, likely because we put that white foundation on, we are only going to need 1 coat of yellow. So we'll see. We'll double check for sure, but generally you'll only need 1 coat. We're going to come in and just pounce on the yellow here. Yeah, I think I might do 2 coats. All right, now remember to pick your ducks up because you got to paint your ducks as well. So you're going to just come back over and paint your ducks. Now this guy only needs to be painted in this section here with the yellow. His feet down here will get painted orange. All right, so we're gotta wait for that yellow to dry. Let's get another coat on our green. And that should be it for our green. All right, don't forget your bases. All right, and that's going to be it for the green. I believe double check yours and make sure you're good, but three coats on the green seem to do it. Okay, let's see, what do we do next here? Well, that's pretty dry, so let's go ahead and get another coat on the yellow, and that should be it. Just these 2 coats should be enough. And then don't forget to pick up your ducks and get them done too. All right. Next we're going to do orange. So we're going to paint the beaks and the feet orange. I'm going to cut another wedge in half here, so I only have a little thin line of it. Orange is definitely going to take probably 3 coats. Definitely 2, probably 3. Even with a white foundation. It covers a lot better with a white foundation, but it still covers hard. And then don't forget, you have to do the feet on the duck with the inner tube. And you want to come all the way up to its legs, all the way up to its shorts, I mean, to get the legs, right? So don't worry about getting paint on this part here, because we have those little short pieces that are going to come over top of it. All right, so that's going to need a second coat, so we're just going to let that sit for a second. While we wait for our orange to dry, we're going to start working on some other colors here. We have, oh, I forgot to paint the water on this piece here, okay? So grab your blue again. Sorry guys, missed it, totally missed it. It will need 2 coats. Don't worry about the water droplets, except for that one. The other 3 get covered. You can go ahead and paint them if it's easier for you, but... Okay, sorry about that. That should have been down here. Okay, so we've got his shorts to paint and sunglasses. We've got a few things. Let's paint the sunglasses. They're the only thing that's black. You're going to use your black for other things, but let's just go ahead and get a coat of black on the sunglasses. I'm going to go ahead and stick this down right here, just so I have it where I can keep track of it. Same with the shorts. The shorts aren't black and they're not green, but I'm going to put them there anyway. And I'm going to use this dark blue. And let's paint this and the shorts dark blue. Again, just another sliver of a sponge, or even your brush if you want your brush. I'm actually going to cut my sponge into 4ths because I really just want a tiny little bit. Okay, I'm going to paint. Paint his shorts and the little snorkel blue. That's gonna need some coats, so let's just let that sit for a second. All right. while you got your blue sponge out, I'm going to pounce off what extra paint's in there. And I'm going to come back to my water because I want to start giving some highlights to stuff. I'm going to put one more coat on this piece that I had missed earlier. So it's got 2 coats. And then I'll hit that last. I'm going to grab the blue puddle. And I've got the dark blue sponge that I just coated with for the shorts and the snorkel. Now it doesn't have a whole lot of paint in it. I'm gonna come around the edge of the puddle and I'm just grabbing the edge and dragging my sponge down and around just to create like a darkened edge here, some shading. It makes such a difference. All right, there you go. And then that piece is done. Now I'm gonna do the same thing with all of the water droplets. So you might have to get a little bit more paint on your sponge, but then you're gonna come and wanna pounce most of it off again, okay? I'm just gonna grab the water droplets and all I'm gonna do is the outside rounded edge. I went a little far with that one, but I just want the outside tip. Make sure you put it right back down on your tape where it was so you remember what duck it went to. Just the outside edge of them. If you get too much, you can always grab your light blue sponge and come back and cover it with the light blue again. Can't really mess this up. These, unfortunately, you have to hold in your hand to do this. I mean, if you're really good, I suppose you could probably do it, but I'm not. Once again, I probably got too much on that one, but so let's say I did get too much and I want to kind of fix that. I'm just gonna come back in with my light blue sponge and then darken it back up again. All right, now we gotta grab this big piece here just to get that edge of that drop that doesn't get a piece that sits on top of it. And then we're gonna do these down here. Oh, look, I can manage it with them sitting on the tape. Maybe not as good as the others, but okay. So that's done there. Now, as far as I can say or tell, I believe most of our water is finished here. I'm gonna grab the top edge of this too. Okay, so I think the water part is done. So I think we can call that good. My yellow paint is still drying, so I'm gonna go back to my orange and get a second coat on my orange. I think 2 coats is probably going to be enough on that. And then don't forget your feet. Yeah, I think 2 coats is good. We'll revisit that in a minute, but let's go back over to our shorts and our snorkel. And that's that little bit darker blue, and let's get another coat on that. All right, now let's move on to the inner tube, or they're not inner tubes. What are these called? Inflatable pools. Geez, Heather. All right, I'm gonna take the right-hand side one first. And I'm gonna paint this 3 colors. So I'm gonna paint it pink, purple, and then teal. I've gotta make pink though, because I only have red, but I do have white, so that's easy enough to do. So you're gonna want to use a plate or a box. And use your brush. Any one of the brushes is fine. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of red down onto my table cover. You don't need hardly any red at all. That is way too much. Probably what ends up in the brush would be just fine. And then I'm going to put a little bit of white down there. And I'm just going to mix up. This is way too much paint. You probably only needed about a dime size. All right, there's a pink for me. Yes, actually, let's make it just a little darker on one side. So I got two pinks here. I got a dark pink and a light pink, which is going to work out perfect. Okay, I am going to paint, to make things easier, I'm going to paint this top ring first, and I don't care if I get a little bit into the next ring. If I do, it's not the end of the world. Just not going to stress it. All right, we're going to let that dry. While we wait for that to dry, we're going to move on to our little floaty water wings because I want them to be pink too. So I'm just going to stick them in a little bit of space here on my tape. And I'm going to go with this darker pink as well. I'm just using the brush because it was already had pink paint in it. Okay, and then I've got to do the floaty. This is my far left duck, the far left duck. This is the inner tube, and he's getting a pink inner tube as well. This would be much easier to paint with a sponge, not gonna lie. But we're just gonna, I have pink on my paintbrush, so I'm going with it. But by all means, if you want to use a sponge, it will be easier. Okay. We are going to do more to those, but for the moment, that's good. Let's go back and put another coat on the inner, or the first piece, which is the top ring of the inflatable pool. You can see that I thought I had enough paint, but I don't, so I'm mixing some more real quick. All right, that's good on that. And then I'll come back to my water wings and get another coat of paint on those. Okay, while the paint's wet on those, I'm just going to grab a little bit of more red. Well, that ended up being more white, didn't it? More red. I'm going to come through the center here just to darken that center up so you can see that there's two wings there, or, you know, that there's the area where they meet. And along the edges there. That's good. All right, let's go back over to our ring, our whatever this thing, inflatable ring. Geez, Heather, can't remember from 1 minute to the next what this thing is. And give it another coat. And I'm not going to blend my color all in so it's one solid color. I'm going to leave it a little streaky. All right, and there's my second coat on that. Inner tube, it's called an inner tube. All right, my orange does need one more coat, so I am going to, I'm going to give my orange another coat and my sunglasses another coat. And I think that this is okay, so I'm going to leave that. So let's get another coat on the sunglasses. That should be the last one there. And then let's go ahead and do one final coat of orange on the duck, feet, and beaks. And then don't forget your feet of your standing duck. Okay. All right. All right, let's do some little accent work on all the yellow while we wait for everything else to dry before we move on to painting the pools. I'm going to take my yellow sponge. It's still wet. And I'm going to dip it into the red pod just a little bit. And then I'm going to come over here and blend it in a little bit here. I might need a little more red. I want it to be more red than it is orange, okay? All right. Starting with the far right here, I'm going to grab, these are his arms, and I'm just going to kind of touch, nope, that's too orange. Too orange, or too red. Okay, let's try again. All right, there we go. Okay, so it's kind of messy, but this is how I do it. I put a little bit of paint on it, and then I brush it off with the pad of my thumb here, because I just kind of want it to blend together. All right, and it's just darkening up the edges there a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the top of the wing, just the top. I'm try and get some of that paint out. There we go. If it's too much, just do less. You take a baby wipe and you can get some of it off. You could also darken up yellow. I didn't give you brown, but you could darken the yellow up. I just liked the orange, so I went with orange on it. I'm going to do the same thing at the top of all the hair, but I'm only doing just a very little bit. Just kind of like touching the sponge to it. And then these guys' hands, just the bottom. Okay. And then the ducks themselves, I'm going to grab this guy and I'm going to come and I'm just going to do right through here. Okay. This guy here, same thing. You're just going to get his head. And then just right down here and down here. And then this guy here, we're just gonna do up around his head as well. Let's see, let's try to get in this little bit here. All right, that's how that one turned out. Okay, that's it for that. All right, let's see, what do we got left here? We've got the pools and we have the snorkel mask. And then we have some little dots on his shorts. Okay, let's move over to the pool here. This is the second ring part. My next ring is gonna be purple and I'm gonna use a brush on that. So open your purple up. And then the next one is gonna be teal. So I'm just gonna go ahead and open my teal up as well. And I'm just gonna rinse my brush back out. I'm gonna use the same brush. I think you have a couple brushes if you wanna switch over. All right, purple is the next one. Now this one you have to be a little bit careful up against the pink that you already painted. So keep that in mind. All right, that's probably gonna need a second coat, so we'll just move on to something else while we wait for that to dry. We'll just set that aside. While we wait for that to dry, let's move over to this one here. Now this will have to be painted in this back here because the duck is going to, it's gonna show around the duck. So to be the easiest with this, I'm going to use my wide brush and I'm going to grab a little bit of my teal and I'm going to put it on my table. And then I'm going to grab some white and put it next to my teal because I'm going to do 2 shades of teal on this. But the first one, I'm going to paint the whole thing that light teal that I just mixed up. Now, if we're lucky, we won't have to put a second coat on this. Sometimes when you paint with a brush, you don't have to put a second coat on. Just ends up thicker, you know. Okay, let's let that dry. But we're not done yet because we have to go back in here. We have to grab the base piece and we have to paint this section here as well. Just this section where the stripes are there, the little score lines, because that's going to show through. Okay, good. I think it just needs that one coat is fine. And now let's take the center duck. This is, I'm sorry, it's not the, yeah, I'm sorry, the right hand duck. This is the duck with the little rubber ducky. Now this is going to show through just a tiny little bit. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab my blue sponge if I still have it. Not sure what I did with it. Anyway, I'm going to grab a little bit of blue, the light blue, and I'm just going to fill that in there. Just like that, because that's going to show, and I didn't think about that till just this minute doing that other one. Okay, let that dry. It shouldn't need any more. All right, while we're waiting to move on here, there's a lot of little detail work that we need to get done. So let's start focusing on some of that. We're going to take our little duck, and we need to paint his beak orange. So I'm using the finest brush I have. I'm just grabbing a little bit of orange paint, and I am going to paint in his beak. And then I'm going to rinse that out right away. And then I'm going to take the wrong end of a paintbrush, preferably one of your rounded brushes. Some paintbrushes don't have a round back. They have a square flat back. I like the rounded back. And I'm going to just dip it into a tiny bit of black paint. And I'm going to just give this duck a little tiny dotted black eye. And I'm going to set him aside because he is done. I'm going to grab this piece again in my purple, and I'm going to get that second coat put on that purple so we can move on to that bottom rung. All right, let's set that aside. We're going to come over to this sky now, and we're going to grab straight teal. So that's that darker teal there, and we're just going to paint the center rung, that dark teal. We're going to use a paintbrush, and we're just going to take our time and get that painted in. We'll only need one coat. All right, so there's that. And we're going to set that aside. We're going to grab its backer piece, and we're going to paint the center on the backer piece, that same teal. Just like that. And then that piece is done. And let's see, now we've got the bottom piece to this, which I'm going to paint the teal as well. So we'll just keep on moving. There's that. And I don't think those are gonna need another coat, so we're just gonna let that ride for a second here. Okay. We have to put the dots on the shorts, and we have to finish this little snorkel. I'm gonna rinse out my brush really good because I want to paint those little pieces on the snorkel yellow, but I know that I have to paint them white first, because if I don't, the yellow's never gonna cover. So I'm gonna come in with my white, and I'm just going to paint a coat of white here. Just like that. And then I'm going to rinse that out. And I'm going to paint the dots on my shorts. Let's see, what color do I want to paint those? I think I'm going to paint them white. So I'm going to use the wrong end of one of the rounded paintbrushes. So just make sure it's round on the end. I'm just going to dip the wrong end of the paintbrush into the white paint. And I'm going to come in, I'm just going to dot in the score lines where the dots are until it fills them. Now with the larger one, you just have to work your way out to the center just carefully. Just spread the paint out just like that. Okay, that's cute. All right, now we have the detail work on the beaks and the duck faces. All right, so the detail work on the beaks, we're just gonna come back to this yellow and orange sponge, and I'm gonna grab a little bit more red on it. And I'm going to come over here and pounce and blend in here. I might have to add yellow. I don't know yet. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to grab the top of the beak. Okay, the top. And I'm just going to drag down and around and give that just a little bit of color like that. Perfect. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the feet on the bottom edge. Okay. And then don't forget the duck that's standing. You need to grab his feet on the bottom as well. All right. And then for the beaks, I'm going to take the finest brush that I have. And I am going to, I'm going to blend some orange and red and get just like a red orange. I want it darker than the orange that's on his beak, but I only need a tiny little bit. And then I'm going to follow the line in his little beak, just like that. And I'm going to do that with all three of them. All right, there's beaks. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the duck faces, and this is gonna use your finest brush and your black paint, and you're gonna have some patience, okay? So we're gonna take our brush and dip it into our black paint, and we're gonna outline his eyes Just trace along the outline of the eye that's scored on your duck. Turn the duck around if it helps you. It helps me. And then once you get the outline, then you can go ahead and fill in. And we're going to do that on all 3 of the ducks, but we're also going to do the mouth and the eyebrows. So stay with me on this one. Fill in. And then let's do the eyebrows. Start in the center and then move out. So you get the most paint at the inside edge and then you move out. And then we're going to do the same thing down here. We're going to just trace his little frown line, smile line, and then the mouth line. Just like that. Okay, and let's do that with each. Oh, okay, well on these ones they don't have eyes. So now you just got to do the mouth and the eyebrow. Now you're going to do the eyes on this though. All right, so I'll show you how this is going to work. First, we're going to paint these eyes in, because these are goggles, so they kind of have to be like a foggy white. So I'll show you how we're going to do that. First, we're just going to paint those eyes in. All right, and we're going to let that dry. We're going to move over to this duck. We're going to do his eyebrows. And his mouth. All right, and let's see, what else do we have black here? We have more black, but right now that's it. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean that brush out. And let's see, let's go ahead and that's dry. Let's paint that yellow. Okay, that's it for that. Let's grab our sunglasses and a little tiny bit of white paint. And we're just gonna paint the glare. Okay, so that's that. And all right, so next up is going to be giving your ducks some cheeks, if you want to do cheeks. You know what? I'm not going to have you do cheeks. Cheeks are tart. Ugh. Okay, so next up, let's just, instead of putting a cheek on the duck, which is very difficult for a lot of people and they end up not liking it, let's just use the wrong end of our paintbrush and then let's just dip it in white and put like 3 little dots. 1, 2, 3. That'll be our duck's cheeks. And we're going to do that on each one of them. You might have to have a little bit softer hand the smaller that it gets. This one, because of the glasses are going to be there, you're not really going to see all of them, all the cheek dots. Same with this guy, you won't see all of them. We're going to put them in there though. Okay. All right, let's see, what else do we got here that we need to do? Our inner tube. Let's grab our inner tube here. Again, a small brush, white paint, and then let's paint this white here. You could paint it with a darker shade of the pink. I'm just gonna do white. And then yeah. Kind of want to highlight the little inner tube part, so I just grabbed a little bit of white and red paint there. And what else? Let's see, I think this teal might need one more coat, so let's do that. And then I think we're ready to assemble. Alright, and then this guy, just need another coat. All right, so really the only thing we have left is this. And we have to wait until that's fully dry before we can do anything else with this. So what we're doing is we're waiting for the eyes to dry, and then we're going to take the tiniest little bit of white on a sponge and we're going to go over the whole thing. So it's covering the eyes, but it's barely covering it to make it look frosted. And then we're going to take our fine brush and we're going to go along the outside to paint black, but this little nose piece here we've got to paint yellow, so we'll get to that in a minute. That's still got to dry and everything, so let's clean this up a little bit here so we have some working space, and let's start gluing. I'm not going to put anything really away quite yet because we're going to need it still. But I want to get some of this out of my way here so I can work right in my space. So I'm just kind of move this to the side. I'm not taking anything off yet because I know that it's all in order. I just want to get a little bit of space right here so you can see how I'm doing each one. All right, let's start with our left duck. It's easiest if we just do one at a time here. And you got super glue. I'm just going to use our house glue here. We never seem to put the cap back on our glue. And we're just going to put a little bit of glue in the center. Remember, don't get it too close to the edges. You don't want it to squish out. And we're going to start putting our pieces on here. So first we're going to put on our inner tube. And then we're going to take our hands and we're going to put our hands on. All right, and then we've got his little tuft of hair he needs at the top. Make sure you turn that and get that on there right. Make sure its edges are lined up there. And then he gets his sunglasses. and his beak, or bill, I guess, whatever. That nestles right up to the sunglasses. And then he gets his little shorts. I'm gonna put the glue right on his shorts instead of the pieces, because chances are good your white dots are still wet. So make sure you have the right one on the right side and the left one on the left side there. And try not to touch your dots because they're probably not dry. Okay, so that's the pieces to this guy. And then you got his base. So he gets a blue base because he's standing in a puddle. And then he's got the far left dots, and then he's got this piece here. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue right here in the middle of this. And I'm going to grab this and I'm gonna put it on the middle there. And I'm gonna line it up to the tab. So it's not covering my tab. See, I still want my tab to stay below. Might be easier if you go ahead and slide your duck tab in. Just like that. So make sure you're leaving enough room for your water there. Okay. And then let's just put a dab of glue on each of these water droplets here. Remember that one on the right hand side top does not get a water droplet on it. And then come in and put your water droplets on. Probably easier with not being on the tab, the base, but it is what it is. And then one more. And then there's that piece. These are so cute. I'm going to leave him flat to dry here for a second. Just going to set him off to the side. And then I'm going to move over to this one. I'm going to bring this one down here. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this pool on. Line the edges up there. And I'm going to put my water drops on next because I think it's just going to be easier. Make sure you are putting the right drops in the right spot. And then you're lining those edges up. And then I'm gonna let that sit for a second. And then we got our duck. We're gonna put his wing on. And then his beak. And all right, let's move to this guy before we glue any more. Let's take a sponge and let's get a tiny bit of white on it and then pretty much pounce off the white. So now we're gonna go and we're just gonna drag it over the glasses to make a foggy look. Just like that. So you can still see the eyes, they're just a little covered. And then we're gonna take our brush and our yellow paint and we're just gonna come in, we're gonna paint this beak. It's not beak, It's actually part of the duck. We're going to paint that yellow. And then we're going to take that same really, really fine brush in our black paint. And we're just going to go along the outside edge of the goggle here. You could do this with probably a Sharpie as well if you wanted to. Paint marker if you have one. And then be careful around the beak, or it's not the beak, but the nose. Careful around the nose there. And there you go. Okay, so it's going to be wet, so you have to be careful. But this is going to get glued in here. I'm just going to come in and put this, a little bit of glue here. It should fit right over top of your beak and line up. Okay. And then we're going to put a little bit of glue on just the snorkel part, and you can grab your snorkel and you'll be able to glue your snorkel on. And then this guy, he also gets the top of his hair here. And then he'll get glued, just his little bottom there gets glued into the pool. And he'll sit right in there. And then we're gonna glue the grass. And then he gets put into his base. Oops, as soon as he's dry. Just like that, he'll sit right in his base. You could glue your bases on too if you want to. I just put like a tiny bit of glue on the tab, just a tiny bit, and then push it into the base and hold it for a second. All right, and then let's go to the last one. Put this in front of us, and we're gonna glue on the pool first. And then let's glue on our water drops. Well, I better get my duck on there because he's a tight fit, so I don't want my... There we go, it's all right. So glue your duck first, and then glue your water on. All right, and we got to put his feet on. Make sure you have the right foot on the right side, the correct foot on the correct side. They've got like a different rounded edge to them. Now, I'm going to work fast here because the water wings and the arms, they all kind of lock together with the feet. So kind of work on this all at once. So it's lined up correctly. Don't put any pressure on it yet until you get everything snug as a bug in there. All right, that looks good. And then go ahead and put your pressure down. And then your little duck will just nestle between his feet. Don't worry if it doesn't line up perfectly. Mine does not. But this lined up, and that was important to me. All right, and then we're going to put on his beak, his bill. And then his little tuft of hair. And then we'll do the grass. Make sure you get the right one on the right side. All right, and then he just sits in his base. So I'm gonna put like a little line of glue there and put him in his base. Oh my God, these are so cute, you guys. All right, let me do my best here to show you flat what mine turned out like. But of course, you've got the picture in your kit, and then you saw the picture in the opening. Oh, so cute. Adorable. I know this one was a little time consuming, but it was super cute and we wanted you guys to do it. So, all right, we hope you had fun with this kit and we'll see you again next month.